Good morning. It's a good Saturday morning to you. Welcome to Uncle Benny's Creepy Campfire Stories, the Sludge Report. I don't know when I'm going to get to, by the way, this is Uncle Benny. And I don't know when I'm going to get to putting together some of the you might even call them micro docs. That's not to be confused with micro dots, a form of ingesting LSD. I'm talking about micro docs, micro documentaries that I have in mind. Right now, we're just doing an exercise in critical thinking and piercing the darkness, right? Okay, so again, my introduction here is kind of a theme, but that's because, I don't know when people are going to be seeing this for the first time, and that's an important context to bear in mind. Right, so this morning, before I really get into it and get down to the real nitty-gritty, I want to read something to you. And it's from the what's called the Gospel of John. And it's a very familiar passage. But, sometimes familiarity breeds contempt, does it not? And it's worth revisiting. Sometimes you've got to get back to the fundamentals, So Jesus was speaking to Nicodemus when he said this, and he said to him, "Verily, verily, I say to you, we speak that we do know and testify what we have seen, and you receive not our witness." Now, Nicodemus was, I think, one of the Pharisees, okay? "If I have told you earthly things and you don't believe me, how will you believe if I tell you of heavenly things?" Now, that's that's sort of a truism, isn't it? That if you can't love, for example, God or a man who you can see, how can you love a God who you can't see or bless? Or, well, anyway, I have to look that up again, but there's an expression like that where, if you can't do something for that which you can see, how can you for that which you cannot see, right? Well, maybe I'm just repeating what's being said here, but there's other ways that's been applied. But so John 3:13 says, "And no man ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven." Now, by the way, this is an interesting aspect of doctrine. So no man's ascended to heaven except he that came down from heaven, which is Christ. But everybody believes that their loved ones, when they die, they're floating around in heaven, watching over them. Something to think about. Okay, study it out. "And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life." Here we have, he didn't say that whosoever believes in him should not go to hell and burn forever and ever in torturous flames like Hollywood and the Roman Catholic Church want you to believe, and most of evangelical churchianity, by the way. It makes a very direct contrast between perishing and eternal life. So eternal death or eternal life. It's just something to think about. I didn't actually mean to get into all this, but when you read the Bible, it's a living book. So I'm just going to go with what's coming to mind as I'm talking about this. I'm just plowing through it here. By the way, Moses lifting up the serpent in the wilderness, the Israelites were directed when they send to look up at this serpent on a big pole, and they would be healed or cleansed. Excuse me. I haven't read that in a long time. I need to probably review that, but that was a type and shadow of Christ coming to where we look upon him for our salvation, for our forgiveness. When we've done something that we're deeply convicted of, or we know is wrong, or we know is sin, it's been said, we can't change the past. You can't go back and change it. You might be able to rectify some things that have happened, but it's, it's done. It's part of your personal history. It's part of your situation. Only by looking to him do we have hope for cleansing, for forgiveness. Because really, that's who, when we sin, we really only sin against God. You can sin against man and God, sin against yourself, but really in the end, you answer to your maker, and I don't like to say you, because if I do, remember, I'm saying me too. This isn't about, like I could say, I can always say, ask me how I know, which I do say periodically. So going on a little further, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Now that's huge, He came not to come and condemn everyone, shame them. Shame is a big thing. There can be healthy shame, okay? But shaming, many people are shame-based. They're shame-based and blame-based. And we got to come out of that. That's something to be delivered from. It's all around you. Shaming someone is mind control, by the way. All right. So there's degrees, right? There's degrees. Like I said, there's healthy shame. And in fact, I just responded to someone who works at one of the social media sites on a reported comment that they said it fit their community standards, but it really didn't. And I said, shame on them. They're hypocrites, because they it's one thing if you malign one of them, but it's another thing if you malign, for example, Jesus Christ, not his real name, by the way. If you malign him, well, you're not bullying someone's character, you're not anything like that. And they don't know about Josephus, the historian, apparently, that whether or not you believe Jesus Christ was the Son of God, he was a real historical figure. He lived, right? And continues to live, by the way. So moving on. He that believes on him is not condemned, but he that believes not is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that does evil hates the light, neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. Well, let me tell you something. I've done evil, and I continue to do evil. And what does that mean? It means that believing does not make you automatically perfect. There's only one who is perfect. There's only one who is true. Every man is a liar except the Lord. And my point is that there are those who, they, like cockroaches, scurry from any light whatsoever. They react in anger if they're ever confronted, if they're ever challenged, if they're ever exposed. They'll do all kinds of convoluted things, dastardly things even, horrible, criminal, wicked things, murderous things even, to avoid being found out of some of their evil deeds. But when you believe, and when you know who the Lord is, when you've tasted and see that he is good, when you've been forgiven and you know it, you come to the light. You come and you look up to the serpent on the staff to be cleansed. You come to the light. You're reproved already. You have the Holy Spirit convicting you in your heart. And you sometimes wonder, well, where was he before I did it? Well, we're drawn away by our own lusts. We have, the flesh is enmity with God. and we don't always have it under control. It's true. So anyway, I didn't open this this little video up to start to sermonize or anything, but it's context. It's context. And I hope I can bring it back around to this and fit it in. I may not be able to. We'll see. So let's, I'm not going to go through again the entire Sludge, the Drudge report for all the Sludge. But I think it's been a few days and we'll do some doom dots here, okay? We'll just do it a couple times, and I'm going to play a little music in the background. And, we'll just take it as it comes here, right? So, the main, this actually seems like a light doom page, but I don't know. As I was reading through this, I'm trying to, in my mind, kind of qualify them. How much doom, what does that mean? There's a lot of chaos and confusion. There's a lot of focus on things like, for example, is this doom? Urine therapy says drinking your own pee is good for you. I mean, this is not really brand new news. This has been going on. There's lots of YouTube videos about this, and but it is one of those things where it's kind of like, good Lord, the world's gone crazy. So you can argue this is doom because of chaos and disorder and instability, things like that. I did look at this article yesterday about the woman in a wheelchair caught hiding 4 knives and knee brace. She's unnamed, undescribed, other than she's in a wheelchair. Now, what do you think she's going to do in a wheelchair with 4 knives, which incidentally were butter knives? And she's British as well. What does that mean? Well, she's a woman in a wheelchair and she's British. I don't know the last time I've seen a rampaging woman who, with an English accent in a wheelchair, hijacking a plane or going on a murderous, stabbing spree. I guess it could happen. But the point is, she was arrested, I believe, or she wasn't allowed to fly. I'm not sure if she's arrested, but the point is, well, she wasn't allowed to fly because it was she committed a quote unquote crime. She laughed, and they made a big thing about it being no laughing matter. Well, Once again, here we go, some spin. Okay, let's just think about this. Again, I'm really off script here. So this might be a long video, but I guess I'm warming up this morning. At any rate, so you've got 1 second. Let me do something here. Okay, so you've got them saying she's hiding 4 knives. Just because something is not visible does not mean she was hiding it. When you throw the word caught in front of it, it's like busted. You were doing something nefarious, clandestine on purpose because it was wrong. Well, how about this? Perhaps that knee brace needed some stabilizing. What better thing to use than a what I mean, what are you going to have laying around that is going to be steel or solid, that's about the right size, flat, that you could use to help stabilize your knee? Maybe 2 on each side. Let's take a look at the picture. Well, there you saw it. Going to make sure you know that you can't even trust a woman in a wheelchair. Now let's think about this. How many times have you seen the TSA derided or chastised when they have an elderly woman in a wheelchair, or, for example, they'll search a baby in swaddling clothes and things like that, to where you're like, this is like harassment. This is conditioning people to be submissive to invasive, and basically almost false accusation. You're a criminal till proven innocent. Well, how convenient to have a woman in a wheelchair have knives hidden inside her knee brace, but then make it like she laughed. Well, she must be a little unstable, a little crazy. She's a little female joker. But look at this knee brace. So it looks pretty new. Okay, let's see if I can find a picture here. Here it is. It's a knee brace, and these are butter knives. Now, if somebody wanted to smuggle a knife on board, let's say they've got a big conspiracy of, there's 3 other passengers, probably can really only wield one effectively at a time as an attack. Okay. And why take 4? Well, it does make sense that it would be a stabilizer here. But it's interesting that this has made national news, international news. I mean, it's on the Drudge. And the TSA offers uncovered 4 table knives artfully concealed. Okay. Well, they confiscated the knives. The London resident was denied boarding. Mass police said the airline had been notified of the incident. I can assure you that trying to artfully conceal any sort of weapon in an effort to get it onto an airplane is no laughing matter. She probably was just, when someone does something innocently, they're not necessarily thinking, oh, I better not bring these butter knives, in my knee brace because it looks like I'm trying to hijack a plane or harm people. It's just one of those things where, again, think about this critically. What's the spin, though? A woman in a wheelchair is not to be trusted. She might be carrying the bomb or the knife or the gun. Do you see it now? When you go, just look it up if you don't believe me. There's been plenty of people who have used their cell phone and videotaped or complained about their loved ones being searched when they're invalids and they're in a wheelchair or they're on a respirator. You name it. All these kinds of things where they're singled out and given a real shakedown, when it's almost ridiculous that what's this person going to do? Even if they had a knife, when's the last time you've been on an airplane? I mean, what's she going to do? Wheelies up to the cockpit and knock down the door? Give me a break. Give me a break. But you don't think about it unless you think about it. And once again, that's why the news. Oh, let me see here. I got to pull the Sludge up again. why the news is not news. You know, it's mind control. Okay, so this today might be a little pedantic, a little maybe not so interesting. I can't really seem to get it in gear, but here we're back to the war drums thing. Now they turned it from red to black. Okay, they keep the billboard up, so you're reminded that they do want to sink American ships and Israeli ships. They're us against them. Was them against us, as in U.S. U.S. puts Iran on notice and weighs response to attack on oil tankers. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't the boat Japanese and Taiwanese and whatever? Tehran billboard shows destroyed. Okay, we talked about that. Fears of confrontation rise. Pentagon readies. I mean, how much more could you be like trying to build a crescendo? You know, Gulf states boost oil security. Hackers that took down Saudi oil site probing U.S. power grid. Okay, I haven't looked at that. I don't know much about that right now. The point is that they're going to probably keep this going through the weekend. So there you go. Okay. So let's go through. Here's something I want to talk about. Wait. Let's go to the article. Trump team weighs options, but downplays war threat. Okay. Trump and Iranian leaders traded accusations Friday over who was responsible for fiery explosion that crippled 2 oil tankers off Iran's coast. But both sides appear cautious not to go beyond a war of words, at least for now. Well, let's think about that for a minute. A war of words. Who's the war of words really on? I'm going to tell you. It's you. Okay? It's really on you. Oh, remember the context here. What's this all doing to us? It's a war of words, and it's on you. Now think about that next time you hear these things that don't go anywhere. What's the purpose? All the world's a stage. You know, and when you're sitting there in the audience, you're being affected. You're getting emotional reactions. You know, it's on purpose. Instability, doubt, hopelessness, fear. Where is the Lord? Who's in control? Chaos and disorder, uncertainty. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Okay. They're cautious, at least for now. See, this again, this is a little bit of a little mind control thing. When they're going to tell you it's just a war of words, at least for now, you know, let's keep, it's sort of like putting one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas again. It's a war of words, at least for now, to avoid a direct military confrontation. After blaming Iran, hours after what appeared to be coordinated attacks on a Japanese and a Norwegian tanker on Thursday, the Trump administration considered options Friday, but showed no immediate sign of responding. Options include providing armed escorts. Well, this harkens back to what happened in the tanker wars 30 years ago. Options include providing armed escorts to vessels navigating vulnerable shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. So what happens if that happens? Okay, there's mines out there. There's lots of opportunity for more staging. You know, but don't make no mistake. There are those who want a war. War is good for business, man. War is good for the economy. War is good for a lot of things, in spite of what the song says. You know what I'm talking about? War. Good God. What is it good for? Well, there's a list. Okay. So options include providing armed escorts, which will increase the liability and likelihood that this will escalate. Because now they're over there. All right. Now your neighbors and children are in harm's way. And boy, won't those make headlines that'll get you stoked and calling for on social media and in the voting booth for war, attack, those GD Iranians, you know? Okay. Another option B, reflagging tankers of friendly nations with the U.S. flag to entitle them to U.S. naval protection. And adding more sanctions to what is already a long blacklist. Well, that's a little bit, I didn't know that was going on. So they reflag them with the U.S. flag. What else does it do? It means that if they were somehow to run into a mine, even accidentally, that becomes now an attack on the United States of America and an act of war. Let me just, can you just really search your soul for a second? Do you really think that Iran wants a war with the United States? And it would be the United States, Britain, and Israel, and probably Canada, and a little Australians thrown in there to the mix, possibly. You name it. You know, just harken back to the Iraq War, whichever one you want to choose, and how the devastation, the millions possibly killed, hundreds of thousands to a million plus killed, I mean to say. You know, they can tell you there's 1,072,000 illegals in the United States, but they can't tell you how many people they kill in a country like Iraq or whatever, because, you know, I just think that's interesting. You know, who's doing the counting over there? Okay. Anyway, my point I'm trying to make, I think, is that Iran does not want to be reduced to rubble. Do you think Iran, again, ask yourself, critical thinking here, do you really think Iran wants to attack the United States when there's bases? You know what? Let's do it. I haven't pulled this image up. Let me just see if I can find an image of bases around Iran. Let's see what we can find here. Here we go. Second one here. American military bases around Iran. Let's take a look here. Here's Iran. Which image do we want? Let's just go with this one, the first one. Okay. All right. This is from the Business Insider. Okay. BusinessInsider.com. See what all these little stars are. First of all, the red countries are Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan. All right. The little stars here, what are they? Let's see what these are. Each star represents a U.S. military base. And apparently this is sourced from the Democratic Underground. I don't know much about what that is, but whenever you use the word Democrat, it tends to lean towards the liberal side of things. Given today's warning out of Tehran, the last 12 weeks, see when this article was written. Okay, this is in 2012. So in 2012, at least, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 4 more, 17. There's 4 more. There's 21, 22. That's just on the, 23 down here. That's just on the western side of Iran, okay? What did I say, 24, 23? And then you've got ships. Don't forget, every battleship is effectually a military base. They're floating around, okay? So throw a few of those in there. Bet you hadn't thought about it like that. They're a military base, just mobile. Then how many we got on this side? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 4 more, 11. 4 more, 15. 4 more, 19, 20. So it looks like about 20. 20 on this side, 20, 23. Let's just say 40 altogether. 40 plus a half dozen other military bases, counting the rounding down, and also battleships. Really, you think this little country wants to go to war and is going to attack any interest? Do you think that's true? I mean, the lie is so blatant. Well, you know, I saw a meme the other day about they lied to us about WMDs. They lied to us about Gulf of Tonkin, you know, getting into Vietnam. They lied to us about, I don't know, there was like 4 or 5 or 6 things. And those are all verified. It's not conspiracy theory. You know, I guess every once in a while, if you have an imaginative mind and kind of wonder about what the truth is, you're going to be in a theoretical situation for a moment. Well, that might prompt you to go look into it and see if there's evidence. And if you're an honest person, you're going to go see if there's evidence. You're not going to try to conform it to make the evidence. So let's be honest about it. But the bottom line is those are not theories. That happened. And why would it stop happening? Right? So again, we're looking at an odds play here. First of all, they are spinning it that we've been attacked. They're basically making it like it's a foregone conclusion. And not only if they attack a Japanese tanker and a Norwegian tanker, even passively with a mine, that's a direct attack that the United States needs to get involved in. I mean that's just nuts. Well, who would want us to get involved for them? Oh, well, Israel. Okay. Anyway, I could easily go off on a tangent there. I almost did. I'm going to back off for a minute. So anyway, there we go. So let's back over here for a second. And I'm going to go a little bit further than I'm just going to move on from this story. Okay. Let's see. Acting Defense Secretary. By the way, we always hear about the Defense Department. It used to be called the War Department. Well, I think it really ought to be called the War Department. In fact, these days it ought to be called the Offensive War Department, or the the Attack Department, the False Flag Department. Honestly, look, everything is couched in defending democracy and defending freedom. Now, this might be real rudimentary for many of you, but let me tell you, not there are many yet, but at any rate, or that there ever will be. But the fact is that we are not a democracy. So every single person, first of all the talking heads, whatever quote unquote side they're on, you're going to hear them you'll hear them talk about democracy and defending democracy. We're a republic. And when we cease to be a republic, which we're ceasing to be, it's a big problem. It's doomed. It's doomed. And it is doomed, by the way. It's really doomed. Now, I run the risk of being akin to Jonah, basically being pretty pessimistic about Nineveh, and then the entire city repented, But look, I try to be a bit of a realist, right? It's doomed. Because who's controlling the minds of the nation? The people who run the media, because the nation's been conditioned to give authority to false sources, and to not think critically, and to be not in touch with history or the roots or what real freedom is. Churchianity's been not completely, but it's been weakened and maligned and infiltrated, and there's so much division, that's been intentionally on purpose. Okay. All right. So moving on here. This is all doom and gloom, isn't it? You might put a doom dot right smack on me, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, it's bad. We know it's bad, and it's getting worse. It's going to get worse. And that's why we need to make sure of our salvation. That's why we need to be looking up. That's why we need to be, and I'm speaking to myself, we need to not be rusty in the word. We need to become acquainted with it. We need to understand the sure word of prophecy. We need to hold fast to the promises. We need to trust and be in peace. We need to let his light shine like a city on the hill in us. Now, hey, man, I could point to a lot of things happened this week where I didn't. I wasn't on top of the hill, man. I was in the valley of the shadow of death. One reason I'm doing this. It's just like when you're fat and you know that you're fat and you get a gym membership and you start getting to the gym, it doesn't mean you've completely changed all your eating habits, and doesn't mean you make it to the gym every single day, but you're trying and you're getting there, and give it a little time. You get yourself in shape. Okay. So get yourself in shape. I'm trying to get myself in shape. The more of us that are in shape and in tune, the better. I'd sure like to have Iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens the countenance of his friend. So iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. I'd love to be sharpened more. Man, I tell you, I've gone through periods of just where I've just been so discouraged that I just kind of like, what's the point? Just and that's sad. But at any rate, anyway, let's see here. What did I miss there? Iranian officials. Okay, I've been just scrolling around here. I might have missed a bunch of stuff. Defense Secretary said the Pentagon was making plans for possible military action in case of more attacks or efforts to close the Strait of Hormuz. So basically, that's a veiled thing saying if there's any more attacks, then we will have military action. Well, it's probably they're saying like we were patient, we were not going to do that, and then if anything else happens, then we're justified. So look for something to happen. There's strategic choke point. Okay. Yeah, that's just talking about Strait of Hormuz. We obviously need to make contingency plans should the situation deteriorate. Do you think the plans have already been laid? Or do you think they're just now having emergency meetings this morning? It's 8:18. By 8:30, they're convening Camp David or in the Oval Office or, in the Situation Room to make contingency plans with all the top generals. No, it's already been done. You know what? I cite the fact that when 9/11 happened, the Patriot Act was in place, written, ready to go, and passed and put into effect like within, I don't know, a month. Okay, that was a pretty veiled attempt to make it look like that they were responding to the 9/11 situation. It was ready to go. John Woo, I think, was the guy who authored a lot of that or had something to do with that. Anyway, Iranian officials pointedly warned in April after Trump administration tightened a ban on Iran's oil exports and worsened its economic recession. Can you imagine what it's like to be in a country that is beholden to a place like, most of us, we've never experienced that. To be over there and all of a sudden things start drying up, because some other country, they're playing politics for their own interest and waging an economic war on your country. Let's not forget that war is not just bullets, bombs, guns, and raping women and kicking in doors. Okay, war is, these days especially, very much economic, and propaganda, and it's a war on your mind, on your soul, and war on your the food on your table, the health of your children, your ability to work. And it sounds like I'm talking about just here. No, I'm talking about if you wonder why a lot of the world is impoverished, it's not because the people are just lazy. It's nothing like that. It's because of the scum that rises to the top and inflicts economic hitmen to undermine countries, their nations, corrupt their leaders. Anyhow. Okay, the attacks, which caused no injuries, may have been calculated to show that while Tehran could not withstand a full-on U.S. military assault, it could still rattle the White House. What would be the point? It's understood that Iran could not topple the U.S. or, defeat our military. Okay, but they know that, so they're just going to cause disruption. Well, that's just going to lead to a direct confrontation. Okay, who really wants or stands to gain from a direct confrontation? We're in the election cycle already, aren't we? A little early, it seemed to me, but we're in the election cycle. When's a good time to get reelected? Well, a lot of people don't want a change of regime when we're in the middle of a war. I don't know, just a thought. That's a fact, but it's just a thought. I don't know, right? it isn't because somebody wants, some personal guy like Trump wants to get reelected, that he will go to war. He doesn't have that kind of ability. He doesn't. Maybe the people that want to keep him there, he's been doing a good job as their spokesperson and keeping the division going great, and the pendulum's in full swing of which side they want it to swing. He's working for him. He's perfect for him. Well, what do they need? What do they need to do to help keep the polls swayed the way they want them? Now, that being said, let me tell you something. I have no confidence in our election system. And what I mean is I have no confidence in the voting system. You don't get a receipt for your vote. Most of the voting machines are electronic, and they're all by the same company. They've been shown to be corrupted. They've shown that they have been corrupted, and that there's gerrymandering. There's all kinds of ways that the polls are rigged. It's just that simple. It's rigged. So you can go vote all you want, but in the end, it doesn't matter. So now that may shake you up a little bit, and you can't even accept that, and you say, "Oh, you definitely are a conspiracy theorist." Oh, whatever. Man, you can look into it. Okay, prove me wrong. Just come back and prove it to me. And you might say, "Well, you prove it to me." Well, there's a documentary. Go look into the hanging chads for one thing. Okay, go look into the voting machine and Diebold and election fraud. There's a few documentaries on it. Okay, Iran's real interest is to show it retains the ability to strike back. The worst thing for Iran is to suffer their sanctions and be ignored. Okay, well they've cooked up a plausible motive for something like this, but boy, it really means that they're going to get worse sanctions, doesn't it? Why, if they're against sanctions, why would they want to invite more sanctions? I think the Iranians understand even the biblical proverb that a gentle answer turns away wrath. Okay, a soft answer turns away wrath. I think they would, they can't be all horrible businessmen. Okay, how do we work this out? They've got to be thinking, right? U.S. officials said military action against Iran was not imminent. U.S. intelligence agencies are seeking to bolster their initial assessment that Iranian operatives had sabotaged the two tankers, hoping to persuade U.S. allies to join the White House to publicly condemning Tehran. So they're working hard to bolster their initial assessment. We already said that initial assessments aren't worth the paper they're printed on. They're doing what they can to bolster it so they can sell it to creating a war cry, U.S. allies to join the White House in publicly condemning Tehran. Okay. Now, I want to mention the boat video that I featured yesterday in the video, that there was some things that are questionable about it. We don't know when it was shot. It does appear to be one of the ships. We don't see any mine being removed. But how do you know that boat was Iranian? You don't. This occurred. I don't know why I didn't think of it yesterday, but it occurred to me last night. How do you know that boat and those were Iranians on board? How do we know they weren't Israelis? Why do I say Israelis? Well, there's a track record. Okay, there's a track record of Mossad, Israeli soldiers, however you wanted to characterize it, pretending to be the very enemy that they condemn, to demonstrate the enemy doing this, that, or the other wicked thing. So they have evidence that the enemy, that these, X, Y, who's the enemy? Enemy X, I don't know, just name it, okay? That they are doing this or that. Here's the video evidence. Look, see them in their, enemy X uniform or their garb. And then you get zoomed in, then you see the Star of David around one of their necks. Oh, you've never seen that? Look it up. I mean, get busy. I don't say get busy to go bring all this mind control and doom on yourself. I'm saying go look it up if you're a skeptic, because I'm not here slinging BS. I'm not here slinging theories of nonsense, I mean, I've kind of reached the end of my research and study of it on a certain scale to where, I see the games. I know what's going on to at least a sufficient degree to know how to look at it critically and hold things at arm's length and recognize when we're being deceived. Discernment is a gift, and it also can take a little work. Okay, you gotta train yourself. So you can train yourself to be a lie spotter. Okay. A defense. All right. I'm done. We're done with this book. Who cares? Look how far we've gotten down in the let me see here. Let me make this a little bigger. See how far we've gotten down the article? Right, just to right there, the little gray line here. Look how much more there is to go. Quite a bit. It's quite a bit. And if I scroll down, well, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to show you. Let's just see how far there was to go. So we're, this is, and there, here's a line. So we were about right here. Okay. Look how much of this stuff, how much blah, blah there is to sort through. Okay. You've heard it said that you repeat, maybe you haven't. If you repeat a lie often enough, people believe it. It becomes the truth. It's another reason some of these articles are so long. You'll find repetition. You'll find repetition, reworking things, saying it different ways, saying the same theme in different ways. Okay. So I don't even want to go any further. This is a third episode on the Iranian deal. Now let's look at this this deal. Okay, this is Time magazine. Now, I haven't seen the physical copy, and in fact, it was only this morning I happened to see this, and to me, it's shocking. It really is shocking because it's kind of repulsive. And when it's on Time magazine, which is, it almost seems like an American institution, it's right up there with like National Geographic or the Smithsonian isn't there a magazine, the Smithsonian magazine? Something like that. Good Housekeeping. One of these magazines that go way, way back that people look to. Newsweek. Okay, you name it. All right. That you're going to find in your doctor's office. It's of the people, it's for the people, but it's not by the people, by the way. By the mind controllers. So first, on the face of it, first off, to make it on the cover of Time magazine is legitimizing it. Legitimizing what? Legitimizing these homosexuals, these scofflaws that are married, okay? These young, half men that are married to each other. Think about it. Look at their faces. Look in their eyes. Look at them. Just look at them. It's disgusting. My gaydar, if these were standing there by themselves, my gaydar needle goes off. You can see it. Why? Well, again, this goes to discernment, and it's a spirit. It is a spirit. Sure, there's nurture, all that kind of stuff that goes into it. There's cultural conditioning. There's hormones. There's a lot of things. There's hormone disruptors that go into it, feminizing men and this kind of thing. But it's a spirit when you get down to the real nitty gritty. Okay. So here's Mr. and Mr. Peter something. Peter butt gig. I mean, butt gouge, butt a gag, butt a googe, butt a geege, but I don't know. I keep hearing it, but I can't seem to remember it. Peter butt a googe, butt a gidge. It's kind of funny. Like, again, I mentioned the other day, Ellen DeGeneres, Ellen Degenerate. Is it a joke? It's kind of odd. Kind of, what are the odds that she comes out and starts really mainstreaming, lesbianism and all this kind of thing, and right into your living room, and her name is DeGeneres? It's really odd. This guy's running for president, first gay person running for president, and the first four letters of his last name are butt. Why is that important? Because gay men have butt sex. Okay, they substitute another man's anus for what would be the natural use of a woman with their vagina. Okay, it's perverted. They're perverts, and not just, we don't even know how deep their perversion goes. But on the face of it, it's still pretty perverted. You've got to imagine you're president of the United States, leading the free world, dealing with who knows how many billion Muslims who completely throw homosexuals off of buildings, or, I don't know if they've doused them with gasoline and set them on fire, but they probably killed them in all manner of ways. Okay. So you got to deal with mentalities. I mean, this is really in America's best interest to elect a homosexual man, who's not only just homosexual. It'd be one thing if he's homosexual and saying, I'm not married. I'm to a man. I don't have a boyfriend. I'm a homosexual. It's like something, but he doesn't act on it. He doesn't do anything with it because, he struggles with it. It's different. No, this guy is in your face with it, saying God blesses it. Basically, he's made a lot of claims about his superior relationship with God than. I mean, I might be editorializing a bit, but he's comparing himself to Pence or something like that. Okay, I just got caught wind of some of that. First family. I mean, really, can I keep standing to look at this picture? I'm looking him in the eye. I'd look him in the eye, and I tell him he needs to repent. Well, I don't know if I would even do that. I mean, I just because he's of a reprobate mind. He's hardened in his sin. He's in your face with it. He wants you to celebrate it. He wants to make it commonplace, and he wants to make it as something inscrutable. Okay, I don't know who this guy is, but he was recently asked by a reporter. I'm not a big fan of, but I've watched a few of her things. She asked him if love has an age. This was in Iowa, some gay pride thing, and he fumbled and stumbled, farted and fell, and didn't know what to say, because the point of her question was, for example, is it okay for a 40-year-old man to have a 12-year-old girlfriend, or a 40-year-old man to have a 12-year-old boyfriend? That was the point of, does love have an age? We're talking about pedophilia. We're talking about effectually child molestation, pedophilia. He had to think about it. He said, that's something I'm going to have to think about. He didn't know how to respond to it. Well, I think her question was poorly worded, because love doesn't have an age, in a sense of love is, how are you going to define love? She's talking erotic love. Okay. But it wasn't, it was the subtext was that, but I saw her interview just other people on the street, and they didn't, like some women, they didn't get it. They didn't understand that was what she was asking. I promise you, this guy, this half guy, he understood. Okay, but he still stammered. He didn't know how to answer it, because he didn't. What's he going to do? Come right out and say yes? That's because she had follow-up questions. Yes, it is wrong for a 12-year-old girl to be having sex with a 40 to 50-year-old man, for example. That's just an example. I use something with a pretty wide gap there. Okay. But it really is about pedophilia and NAMBLA. You ever heard of this? The National Association of National something Man Boy Love Association. Yeah. Maybe there's the A is silent. National Association for Man Boy Love. NAMBLA. Okay. It's sick, but there's a lot of relationship between homosexual men and little boys. Let's just put it that way. Okay. You got to imagine. I mean, this segment of this little sludge report it's kind of painful to get through, because it's sort of stomach turning. You got to imagine you're president, if this guy is going to be president, and I can't rule it out, because the power, I just talked a minute ago about the voting situation's corrupted. You thought it was bad enough to get Hillary in office. How about this? Okay. You're gonna want to wake up to this every day. You want to realize that these two half men are committing all kinds of unnatural acts with each other, and who knows where it ends. You know, it's pretty gross. I thought about a few things I could say, kind of shocking things, but they don't go without saying. But if I said them, they're shocking to put into words, but you already know what they are, about what kind of half men these are and what they do with each other. You know, I mean, sometimes I think the graphic imagery might be kind of important. No doubt there'll be some cartoonists or satirists that make some imagery of this. You know, maybe not, because I never really saw a lot of it with the Obama and his and Michelle, excuse me. You know, well, there you go. Time Magazine, First Family. The unlikely, untested, unprecedented campaign of Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Okay. By Charlotte Alter. That's interesting. Last name Alter. So we don't know enough about this guy. I haven't really heard anything about him. You know? What's with their shirts being rolled up like that? Their pants look weird. They don't look like jeans, and they don't look like real. There's some cross between jeans and Dockers. I don't know what to say. It's a gay thing. He's got a ring on his left hand. Let's see if we can see the other guy's hand. No, it's probably on his ass. Okay. In fact, I would be willing to wager that behind his back, that arm goes right down to his ass cheek, his butt cheek. Pardon my language. But I have to make it a little raw, because that's in your face. Maybe that's what that little smirk's all about. I don't know. Now I'm speculating a bit, but, you know, look at that face, man. That mug is just unfortunate. He just does not even look like anything but a politician that's insincere and has an agenda. And let me tell you something. The people of South Bend, Indiana, he came out after he was mayor. He came out as a homosexual, and I don't think he was married when he ran, but then he was going to get married. I don't remember the details. I didn't follow his situation, but I found out later that the people of South Bend, Indiana elected him without knowing all this, and they were enraged. Okay. I don't think he would have been around to be mayor again after all this stuff happened. Okay. Because it was a stepping stone. It was a trial balloon, perhaps. It was a training ground. It was a lot of things. You know, you don't just come out of the woodwork, out of nothing, out of the field, and just run for president. You kind of have to have, something to point to, that somebody can hitch their wagon to. He was mayor of South Bend, and we did X, Y, and Z of this, that, and the other. That some of the backers can start to they aren't going to take an unknown generally. Okay. That is possibility why the whole deal of Trump being in showbiz for a long time, what that was all about, reality show. What was the show? You're Fired. I don't remember the name of the show. He had a show where he fired people all the time. It was a competition, had that for several years. He was in training. Trump was in training, being conditioned, being groomed, being coached, probably being programmed, Yeah, do I do a little speculation? Yeah, but it's reasonable, and I don't say it as fact. I don't know. I keep saying that in my videos. I don't know. Just saying. It's this possibility. You got to think about it critically, okay? Let's look at this article. Matter of fact, is Pete, whatever, addressed supporters off a back porch. Might as well said out of a back door. Okay, some of you might get what I'm saying. That's interesting. Off a back porch in Marshall. It wasn't a front porch. It was a back porch. See? You could say, well, you're making something out of nothing. Am I? You do this long enough, and you'll start to find out that every word is important, just like everything that you see in a picture is important. Okay, what are they not showing you? But what are they sort of alluding to? Well, his arm is around his waist at the very least, but maybe more, I don't know what it is with the unbuttoned shirt and the rolled up sleeves. I don't know what to say. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in this picture. You know, I don't know what kind of flower this is and if it means anything, but it's a possibility. But these are the kinds of things you need to look for. Okay. Let's see. This is a porch. It looks like it's painted. It doesn't even look like a real picture. So, okay, let's see. Wait a minute. It says right here, Democratic presidential candidate and husband Chasten. I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's funny. At their home in South Bend, Indiana. Doesn't even look like a real picture. Looks painted. I mean, this looks like a picture of them, but that looks like painted. I don't know. Strange. Okay, so let's move down to this. As Pete Buttigieg addressed supporters off, I think I got it right, Buttigieg addressed supporters off a back porch in Marshalltown, Iowa, the devil was whispering his name. Pete, the devil hissed into a microphone. You're so smart, Pete. I don't know what. Okay, we'll have to read on. But Buttigieg, maybe I got it now. No more butt gag or butt gouge. Buttigieg. I think I got it. Buttigieg ignored the heckler, plowing forward with his stump speech about American decency, as his husband Chasten looked on. Now think about this. This is cognitive dissonance. His stump speech about American decency as his husband Chasten looked on. This is the height of indecency. It used to be indecency had to do with this kind of immorality and perversion, you know. Pete, the devil whispered, I want the heartland, Pete. I don't know where this is going or who's the devil? What are they talking about? And who's the heckler? Unless they're just some guy yelled something and they're calling him the devil. That's possible. Oh, he was okay, here we go. Like I said, I had to read on. The man in the devil costume was Randall Terry, an anti-abortion activist. He had traveled to Iowa to torment the 37-year-old mayor of South Bend, Indiana, the early breakout star of the 2020 Democratic primary. There's never been a poster boy for homosexuals before, said Terry says. There's never been a homosexual that you go, wow, I'd be proud of him. He's the guy. That's why he's such a threat. 4 years after the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed his right to marry, Buttigieg has become the first openly gay person to make a serious bid for the presidency. And Terry is hardly the only right-winger worried about the rise of quote-unquote Mayor Pete. Buttigieg is saying that, quote, God does not have a political party, unquote, prompted evangelical leader Franklin Graham to tweet that being gay is something to be repentant of, not something to be flaunted, praised, or politicized. And I'm not a Franklin Graham fan. I think his father was a Mason. I think his father was a false teacher. You know, he was super ecumenical, you know, joined up with the Catholics, Roman Catholic Church. I'm not a fan, but this is true. I would say being gay is something to, you know, you are what you are, okay? This is like being ashamed of, like, for example, I'm a heterosexual man, right? So that would be like me being repentant of the fact I have an attraction to women. Okay. Well, I did not ask for that, nor can I help it too much. It is what it is. Same with, you know, you have to have that kind of compassion on someone who deals with these internalized feelings. However, in this case, being heterosexual is the order of things, and the way, you know, God's will is for most people to marry and reproduce. But being gay is an inversion. You know, I didn't even say perversion. It's an inversion of that. But acting it out and taking it to places that, you know, get farther and farther out, that gets perverted. Being gay is something to, you know, how can you repent of something that you have no responsibility for? When I say no responsibility for, someone who's 13 or 14 years old, who's been eating processed foods and foods that have been injected with hormones and hormone disruptors and these kinds of things. He's feminized. He's going to government schools, this and that. He's unsure of himself. His father's abandoned the family. His mom is domineering. You name it, and all these things, factors play into, and he ends up with some gay friends, and you know, he starts questioning his own. I mean, I don't know. I'm just like throwing this out there. He starts deciding he's gay. And maybe he's feeling these things, okay? Well, is that something he needs to repent of? Well, I mean, I can see the point, yes, in a sense, because it's not it's not healthy. It's not the way to live. It's not the way God intended. The way He made human beings after His own image. Because God's not gay. No matter what the gays say, God's not gay. Okay, and He made man and woman. You've heard it said He made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and that's right. Okay, so being gay is something to be repentant of. Well, again, like I said, I don't like Franklin Graham. This is exactly the kind of divisive thing that someone who is gay and maybe struggles with it, because as I said in another video, can you imagine that it's easy to be gay? Even in the environment that we're having happen in the United States, where they're trying to pave the way, normalize it. It's still not easy, and believe me, even no matter how normal they make it, it is never going to be easy. Why? Because it goes against nature. It goes against conscience. I mean, if you look at the suicide rates of homosexuals and the life expectancy of homosexual men, you'll find out what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is, I wouldn't say just not very nice. I think it's theologically not exactly correct. It's so nuanced. You could, because if someone's gay, just like if someone's heterosexual, they don't need to be out, just trying to get it while they can and get all they can, or go from one partner to the next. And, when things get a little rough, they just move on with no commitment. The irresponsibility of spreading or receiving diseases, of creating families that aren't families, having babies, making people pregnant or getting pregnant if it's a woman, okay, because they have desires doesn't mean that, that's something to deal with. That's something to seek God on and get deliverance from, sure. But that's not something that in and of itself, maybe I'm splitting hairs here too. Okay, let's move on. Concerned by the campaign's rise, right-wing provocateur Jacob Wohl, I've never heard of him, was recently caught trying to fabricate sexual assault allegations against Buttigieg to slow him down. I don't know anything about this. And I don't know, is this guy a right-wing? First of all, we got to ask this question. Is he really this? And was he trying to fabricate, or did it really happen? I don't know. I'm not going to go seek it out right now. Okay. There's just something strange about the way he looks. What is it? I don't know how to define it, other than it's something I'm picking up. Just something kind of weird. Let's see. But to some Americans, Buttigieg may just be the man to vanquish America's demons. Well, that's flipped around, isn't it? In a field of more than 20 candidates, including 6 senators, 4 congressmen, 2 governors, former vice president, and a partridge in a pear tree, Buttigieg, pronounced Buttigieg. Okay, I'm not even saying it right. Buttigieg. Buttigieg. It sounds so weird. Buttigieg. Buttigieg. Okay. This is not going to fly just because the name is too hard, okay? How is he going to get elected and most people can't pronounce his name? Buttigieg. Buttigieg has vaulted. That's true. Think about that. That's something interesting about that. From near total obscurity toward the front of the Democratic pack, running ahead of even more established candidates and behind only, here's that language again, behind only Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Gets behind him. Buttigieg is a gay Episcopalian veteran in a party torn between identity politics and heartland appeals. Weren't these one of the first of churchianity to start having gay pastors or marrying gays or something like that? He's also a fresh face in a year. So here he's become a Episcopalian. He identifies or is created this image of being a church-going Christian. Well, I'm sorry, but you married a man And, the God of the Bible is not your God. And, it's not. I'm not judging him. I don't know. God's his judge. I don't know what his internal struggles are, if he has any. But he's deceived himself into thinking, we cannot carry on like that and really belong to Christ, because he changes us. He takes us from salvation to salvation. He takes us from faith to faith. He sanctifies us wholly. He's the author and finisher of our faith. He will remove every spot, wrinkle, and blemish from us. He will cause us to walk in his ways. He chastises every son that he loves and every daughter. He chastises them. What does that mean? He convicts them of sin. He brings consequences. He finds ways, however mercifully and graciously, and they are, he finds ways to guide and correct us. Okay? So to walk out in the face of America and, wave your rainbow freak flag high and flaunt your wedding ring to your man husband when you're a man, I don't think that Spirit's strong in this one. Let me put it that way. Okay? Let me just put it that way. Whether he's saved or not, I hope in the end he's saved. I hope everyone is saved. Remember what I read earlier. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son to save us from our sins. He did not send him to come into the world to condemn people. He came to save the world for all who would believe. Okay? Many Democrats are hungry for generational change, and two frontrunners are more than twice his age. Okay, let's see. But Buttigieg's greatest political asset may be his ear for languages. He speaks 8, including Norwegian and Arabic. I really need to see this to believe it. I could argue I speak several languages, but how fluent am I in them? I don't know. He's particularly fluent in the dialect of the neglected industrial Midwest. Oh, I didn't know that was a language. I guess I speak more languages than I thought. The dialect of the neglected industrial Midwest. Buttigieg is a master of redefinition. I'll say, trying to redefine what is kind of accepted and normal around here. When I say around here, I mean in this the Western world and in this country. A translator for a party that has found it increasingly difficult to speak to the voters who elected President Donald Trump. Son of an English professor and a scholar of linguistics. Is he a son of a scholar of linguistics, or is he a scholar of linguistics? The son of an English professor and a scholar of linguistics, he roots his campaign in an effort to reframe progressive ideas in conservative language. Okay, remember that. To reframe, to manipulate. Okay, he's trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole with things. Okay, if the substance of your ideas is progressive, but there's mistrust about them among conservatives, you have 3 choices. Buttigieg tells Time, sitting on his living room couch in South Bend. One is to just change your ideas and make them more conservative. The second is to sort of be sneaky and try to make them seem like your ideas are more conservative than they are. And the third, the approach that I favor, is to stick to your ideas, but explain why conservatives shouldn't be afraid of them. Okay. His platform is freedom, security, and democracy. Here we go again. Here's another guy who's apparently a Rhodes Scholar. Well, actually, that means that, yes, he's going to promote this. But, the impression is that if you're a Rhodes Scholar, oh, man, your intellect is so precious that we needed to have you at Rhodes to be educated to the highest halls of power and all this kind of thing. Well, freedom, security, and democracy. Well, we're not a Democrat. We're not a democracy. We're a republic, constitutional republic. Okay. But most people will see that as he believes in the importance of your voice. Freedom, security, and democracy, which wouldn't sound out of place coming from a Bush-era Republican, yet actually harks back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But in order to maintain his momentum, Buttigieg will have to do more than flesh out those ideas. Unlike many of his proponents, he hasn't posted any detailed policy proposals on his website. Probably still working that out. He'll also have to convince Democratic and educating him. Okay. He'll also have to convince, because don't make no mistake. All right. I mean, like I said, it's not impossible. There's some that would say it's impossible. I don't think, with what I know about the manipulation, that it's impossible, that he actually could just suddenly be the president, okay, or vice president. Watch out for that. Get Hillary running again, and then she selects him as vice president. Now she's got the gay vote, all the liberal vote, the women vote, the black vote, you name it, whatever, okay? Everybody but the minority of white people, so to speak. So, white conservative people. So, anyway, the point being is that, even if he doesn't make it this run, he's 37. What does that mean? Well, if at first you don't succeed, try again. This is training. This is rehearsal. Unlike many of his opponents, he hasn't posted details. He'll also have to convince Democratic voters that his experience running South Bend is adequate preparation for running the world's most powerful country. And he'll have to make inroads with Black and Hispanic voters who have so far appeared unimpressed with this campaign. Well, I will say that there are obviously homosexual Black people and there are homosexual Hispanics, but, this is a machismo type of a culture. And you could say the same in a sense Black culture where, I don't know what the suicide rate and things like this, but I think it, heretofore, it's probably getting a little easier. But it's one thing to be white and gay. It's another thing to be Black and gay or Hispanic and gay. Okay. They have pretty strong social pressures. So I don't know. Buttigieg likes to say, but hey, don't forget, money talks. All right. How about some Obama phones for you? Good Buttigieg phones. Buttigieg something or others. Buttigieg likes to say he has more government experience than Trump and more military experience than any president in 25 years. As Trump's victory in 2016 proved that many Americans are willing to elect a president without a traditional Washington resume. But some voters long for stability after 3 years of chaos. It's not clear whether the Trump presidency has made it easier or harder for outsiders. Same assets that propelled Buttigieg so far could ultimately thwart his rise. His youth is appealing to many voters, but also means he's green. The idea of electing the first gay president thrills liberals. Isn't that sad? That they want to elect a guy. They're thrilled. They want a gay president because he's a gay president. It's sort of one of the ways you could look at that. And there are those. There's some who want a woman. They'll vote for a woman president just because she's a woman. I mean, that's just so shallow. I'm not going to go so far as to state that, the only people who should vote ought to be male landowners. But if you really think about that, there's some interesting strengths to that, okay? There's a band. You might have heard of them. Well, they used to be the Grateful Dead. And then, through sin and death, many of the members have passed on. And they're running around now as the Dead and Company, probably mainly because of business interests. They have to rebrand it. I don't know. Not so some sense of like, well, we're not really the Grateful Dead anymore because we don't have Jerry anymore, Jerry Garcia, or Brent Midland, or you name it. Okay. Or Phil Lesh, the bass player. He's not playing with them, but it's three of them. It's two drummers and Bob Weir. And they're running around, touring the country the last few years, and they sound pretty good and all that. But as far as what they do, and what I'm getting at is that one of the things you'll find at these shows and have for quite some time, and one of the things that Bob Weir really promotes is get out the vote. Get out the vote, and he's seems to be quite liberal, and he was like an Obama supporter, that kind of thing. And, to me, I find it very irresponsible to just getting people to register to vote just to get out there and vote. They know that they're just getting people to vote, but the odds are highest they're voting, for leftists. Well, it's really irresponsible. I don't think you should vote for anybody you don't know a lot about. You shouldn't vote, period, if you aren't really paying attention. Don't just go throw your vote out there. You might have to give an account for that someday. I know I've done it in the past. I'm not so flip about it anymore. Okay. I think it's horrible. Not everyone should vote. Just because you have a right to vote doesn't mean you should. In fact, I would posit this. Personal opinion. Very few people ought to be voting, frankly, because most people are under mind control. And most people seem to be kind of ignorant of the truth of the matters. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. But the fact is, most people seem to be voting the way they're told to, the way they feel, not on principle, nothing like this. It's just all, it's really chaos, honestly. It's chaos. Okay. All right. Let's see. As a white man, Buttigieg may appeal more to traditional voters, yet women, that's sort of offensive, isn't it? I mean, a black, ostensibly black president was elected. You think he got elected just on black votes? It's just ridiculous, Yet women and voters of color are the heart of Democratic coalition. He's running as a healer, not a fighter. Oh, brother. At a moment when the party seems to be in a fighting mood. As a woman of color, it's very difficult for me to hear we can unite across our differences, says Democratic operative Jess Roquetto. On one side, you have people who want to live in a white supremacist country. Really? And on the other side, you have people dying at the hands of white supremacists. What the hell is she talking about? Well, she's talking points. This is part of the mind control. I didn't expect to roll over this. Scrolling through here, that's funny in a way, but it's really horrific. This woman believes that you got people want to live in a white supremacist country. Really? How many of those kind of people are out there? I mean, there's all kinds of people. No doubt there's, and you name a kind of person, there's someone out there like that. But what are they when somebody says white supremacist, what are they talking about? If you've got a majority, that doesn't make them supremacists. Okay. And then she says you have people dying at the hands of white supremacists. Well, it's a mind control word anyway. Okay. In many ways, Buttigieg is Trump's polar opposite. Younger, dorkier, shorter, calmer, and married to a man. Ugh. His success may depend on whether Democrats want a fighter to match Trump or whether Americans want to change the channel, as Buttigieg puts it. People already have a leader who screams and yells, he says. How do you think that's working for us? This is in South Bend. A Sunday morning, Buttigieg is musing. This is a long. I'm barely through this. I'm not going through all this. You can rest assured I'm not going through all this. Again, there's so much here that by the time you're done with it, I don't know. I'm fairly done with this article. I don't even want to get in. They're probably going to get in their relationship. I really don't want to. Let's see. Okay, let's just move on. The point was the Time magazine in this picture that's just really in your face, and it seeks to legitimize. And again, he may not end up being president. He may not even be in the race down the road that far. But the fact is, he's on Time magazine, on your coffee table, in your mailbox, in your doctor's office, in your orthodontist's office, in your dentist's office, where you're taking your child. Maybe that's all this is about. Maybe getting on the cover of Time magazine, mission accomplished. Don't underestimate that. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Morning's trucking on. I'm going to move off of this. And I don't know if there's anything else just to talk about briefly. Let's see. Probably is. Let's see here. Seemed like there was something. Oh, yeah. Well, this might be, if I get around to it and have the energy and the interest, I might make a addendum to this morning, because this is an important story. New York ends religious exemption to vaccine mandates. Orthodox outrage. We'll move. What does that mean? Let me just tell you. We're just going to talk about these titles here. In case you hadn't heard, New York has, I think, I don't know if it's law quite yet, I guess the way it's stated, it probably is. New York ends religious exemption of vaccine mandates, meaning that if your child or you have a religious exemption, for example, the Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood transfusions. Okay, so this is a similar type of concept. So if you have a religious exemption to receiving vaccinations, then you're exempt. And you don't have to. They can't make you. They can't make your child. You know, I don't know if they can keep them out of a school or not, but they can have a religious exemption to being mandated by the state to be stuck with a needle and injected with all kinds of who knows what's. Well, we do know what's, okay? And they're quite thimerosal, fetal parts, formaldehyde. I mean, just the list goes on. It's crazy. Orthodox outrage. All right. So what does that mean? There's huge Jewish communities in that will be affected by this, and they have used their religious. I think we're talking Orthodox Jews maybe object to vaccinations. I'm not an expert in this or anything, but I think they do, and they are upset about it, and they're saying we'll move. Okay, so that's where it is today. Well, this is a terrible precedent. A fish rots first at the head. Okay, and sometimes you got to look at things like that. So I knew a guy who, high school and whatnot, he'd always be the first to know stuff because he had some relationships with people out on the West Coast or whatever, and stuff would come from out west. We'd hear it through him first, or you could also say the same for certain things in the East Coast. So the big cities, what I'm trying to say, like New York and LA, all right? And so this is happening in New York. They banned giant soft drinks. They probably banned straws, I guess. I don't know. And it's just, do you really want people telling you what to do with your body like this? Oh, here we go. Well, you can't tell me what to do with my body and regarding abortion. No, I really can't. But I can tell you that little baby's not your body. Okay, you've been given custody of it. Okay, you asked for it. You invited it to be your guest, and then now you want to destroy it because it's inconvenient, or you're overcome with fear, or you made a mistake. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's it's tough to be in that spot, but tough to be in that position. But the framework of believing that God forms us in our wound, that He can make beauty out of ashes. He can take your everything wrong in your life and turn it for good. We need to have that kind of a faith, that strong of a faith, because that's the word, and we need to stand on the word. It's the word of God, not just the word. It's not just printed words. It's the word of God, God Almighty, the creator of all things, visible and invisible. All right. Well, make a great day.